While I'm talking about thumbs, what's weird is that I had a Future Boy plaster on my left hand. My mum stuck it on to make me feel better about Punky and Gordon, which sounds a bit stupid, but is actually worked. A future Ratman sticking plaster, what will they think of next? Said Granny's voice out of nowhere. Then I realized it had come out of her wrinkly old body, which was standing next to the coach that everyone was getting in to go to the museum. What in the name of the oodle are you doing here? I said, replacing the word kill with oodle, because after hearing Gordon say kill in Fico's own side, I'd realized it was completely un-oodle. I invited her, said Mr. Hodgepodge, leaning his face on Granny's shoulder so that she looked like a two-headed Granny Harpin duck. Oh, well, that's just oodle, I said, and got onto the coach. The first two faces I saw the moment I got inside were Punky and Gordon's. They were sitting next to each other, playing on Gordon's phone like a two-headed Gordon Smuggly. Morning, Barrel, said Gordon, and Punky looked up from the phone and snortled. Oh, is it morning? I said, looking around as if I hadn't realized. Thanks for clearing that up for me, Gordon, I said, was just about to have my dinner and got to Betty Pooh's. What with your cuddly not bud, said Gordon, and Punky snortled again, even though I know he sleeps with a bit of old blanket called Mr. Ponkles. I walked past him, making sure Punky saw my thumb in plaster so that he'd feel sorry for me, and headed to the back of the coach where Darren and Fisky was sitting. Barry, come and sit next to me, barked Darren, doing a blow-off at the same time. Uncle Maldu and his invisible friend were in the seats in front of me and Darren, so we spent most of the trip scraping the back of Anton's neck with Darren's ruler. You won't like Invis when he's angry, said Anton through the gap between the seats. His face was squished like it was stuck between lift doors. I don't like him, full stops, said Darren, and he drew a full stop on Anton's forehead with a blue felt tip pen. I don't know why we bothered getting the coach at all, because Moncton Museum is only a 10-minute walk from school, so we got there in about 3 seconds. As I walked through the car park to the museum, a bit of gravel got stuck on the bottom of my shoe and started scraping every time I put my foot down, which was about once every half a second. Scrape, said Darren. Every time I did a scrape, it was really annoying, but also made me do a snorkel, which was nice because I hadn't been doing that many snortels since I stopped hanging out with Bunky. Snortle, said a voice that sounded like Gordon's. I turned round and it was Gordon. Not that I was surprised, because the voice really had sounded exactly like this. Let me guess, something's happened. That's the funniest thing in the whole wide world, Ammon, he said, now sounding more like me than himself. Yeah, I just remembered your cat's called Spencer, I said, scraping along. What's that grape number 200 million in the history of the universe? Gordon shouted, and I felt like a loser, because that's the sort of oodle thing I'd say, except all of a sudden it sounded really un-oodle. Yeah, why don't you do a salute to your shoe or something, said Bunky, and I was about to give him a super reserve twizzle salute when the door to the museum creaked open and we all did a massive gasp. We were gasping because inside the door stood the shortest, fattest dinosaur any of us had ever seen, especially as none of us had ever seen one in real life before. Whoa! It said, and we all hid behind Mr. Hodgepodge, who was hiding behind Granny Harpenduck. I want my Mr. Ponko, screamed Monkey, and snortled to myself, because by now I'd realized that dinosaurs don't wear baggy old trousers and have badges on their jumpers that say, "Hi, I'm Benjamin Bottle, and I'll be your tour guide for today." The dinosaur took off his mask and we all gasped again, because underneath was the biggest nose ever in the history of nosy salmon. "Hi, I'm Benjamin Bottle, and I'll be your guide for today," said the dinosaur man, and his voice was so oodle, it was as if his nose had sweets inside of boogies. "Hello, Hodge," said Benjamin Bottle, high-fiving Mr. Hodgepodge, who was completely missed because he got cross eyes. "Benji," said Mr. Hodgepodge, thinking he was all oodle because he had a friend. "Kids, this is my friend Benjamin Bottle," he said as we walked in, and we all rolled our eyes because we'd already worked that out. "Today we're going to learn about Mr. Hodgepodge's ancient history, starting with the dinosaur," said Benjamin Bottle as we walked into the first room. "Sounds like a trip down memory lane for you, Mr. Hodgepodge," said Gordon, and everyone laughed. I looked over at Mr. Hodgepodge and saw Granny Harpenduck give him a little peck on the cheek. "Who can tell me the name of his one?" asked Benjamin Bottle, pointing at a dinosaur skeleton in the middle of the room that looked exactly like Darren Fisky, except without his skin on. Darrenosaurus," I said, excited because it was so funny. "Barylosaurus Rex, more like," said Bunky, copying my joke, and everyone laughed. Now, children, this is serious stuff," said Mr. Hodgepodge, and I felt sorry for him because he'd planned his whole trip and no one was taking it seriously. "Just imagine these creatures were roaming Moncton millions of years ago," he said, doing an expression of a dinosaur walking around with crossed eyes. Did they still have Rico's supermarket back then? Asked Anton Maltu, looking up at the dinosaur hands. He was probably imagining it carrying a shopping bag home with his dinner in it or something. No, Anton, they did not have a Rico said. Mr. Hodgepodge, the whole of Moncton would have been a swamp, he said. Then he added or something and looked over at Benjamin Bottle because he didn't really know what he was talking about. Yes, that's right, Hodge Moncton was one big swamp for millions of years, said Benjamin Bottle, shuffling off from the next room, which was empty apart from a big glass box in the middle. The swamp was where this man lived and died, he said, nodding his head towards the box. I ran up to the glass and peered through, and I almost did a scream like the time in Vickers when I bumped into the old granddad with the dumb sweets growing out of his face. Lying down on a bit of fake plastic mud was a completely shivered up old man, his mouth wide open so that you could see his teeth, which were yellow like the bits of corn on the cob you get in dog food. His eyes were open too, but there was nothing inside the holes. This is Mogden Man, whispered Benjamin Bottle, crouching down so that he was our height, even though he's only about a centimeter taller anyway. But what happened to him? Asked Anton, hiding behind his invisible friend. Nobody knows how he died, whispering Benjamin Bottle, just that the swamp kept his body pressed for thousands of years like a jar of Rico's pickled onions. Oh, pickled onions! I could just have one now, said Granny Harpenduck, who was on the other side of the glass box. It looked like she was inside it, which wouldn't have surprised me, but with how wrinkly she is.